Happy Monday! So this is just a video to help you understand some things that you may have read over in chapter 4. And if you're not to chapter 4 yet, that's fine too. I just want to point out a couple things that kids often read over, but this is a pretty important chapter. After I do this with you, I'm going to go over the answers for the study guide through chapter 4. So don't turn this video off when I'm done talking about chapter 4, okay? Remember that you have a test on Wednesday for chapters 1 through 6. So this might be a valuable tool as you are sitting down to study and prepare for that, okay? So at the beginning of chapter 4, we find them looking worn, okay? We can see that their clothes are starting to be tattered, their hair is getting longer. It seems like they've been there for a period of time. And the important part about chapter 4 at the beginning is that we start to see the difference between the big ones, the big kids and the little kids, okay? So you can see here the smaller boys were known now by the generic title of little ones. That's how they're referred, what they're referred to as in most of the story. But in this paragraph, we start to see a couple of the little ones and how the big kids interact with them. Now, you need to remember, we already have one of these kids missing, okay? One of the smaller kids, the kid with the mulberry birthmark, the kid who said he saw the beastie at the beginning is missing after the fire, and they don't know where he went. We're assuming that he was killed in the fire, but he never came back. So we're already down a little kid, all right? It says here they call them little ones. They decrease in size from Ralph down. And then you kind of have these kids in the middle that don't really fit in anywhere, Simon and Maurice, but they're still kind of considered big kids, okay? I want to show you Henry and Roger. Sorry, Henry's hanging out with the little kids, okay? Henry, Percival, and Johnny are sitting there kind of hanging out, building sandcastles. They're just doing what little kids do. But I want to look at Percival first. Bless his heart. If you look right here, it says Percival was mouse-colored and had not been very attractive, even to his mother. Johnny was well-built with fair hair and a natural belligerence. Bless Percival's little heart, y'all. What you need to know about him, besides from him not being even considered attractive to his mother, is that Percival is crying all the time. And we see that in this chapter. He cries and cries and cries. He's whining here. He's crying here. It gets to the point where it's like, okay, Percival's crying again. No one's shocked, okay? So we see Roger and Maurice. They come in, and they start stomping over the little kids' sandcastles. We'll see it in just a minute. Here we go. Through castles, kicking them over, burying the flowers, scattering the chosen stones. Okay, so this is like typical big kid bully behavior. They're just making fun, laughing, adding to the destruction. Okay, only Percival began to whimper. There he is, crying already. Okay, so Percival starts crying there. We see them kind of watching the little kids, watching how they're hanging out, watching how they're playing. But this paragraph really is what I want us to read together. It's easy to read over. I know that in these big sections where there's no dialogue and there's so much detail by Golding, it's easy to skim, but we're going to read this one together because it's important to what's going on in the plot, okay? It says, the subsoil beneath the palm trees was a raised beach, and generations of palms had worked loose in the stones that had lain on the sands of another shore. Roger stooped, picked up a stone, aimed, and threw it at Henry. But look at the next part. He threw it to miss. Okay? If you pick up rocks and you're throwing it at somebody, it's because you want to hit them. So he wants to do something bad here, but it says he's throwing to miss, which is interesting. The stone, that token of preposterous time, bounced 5 yards to Henry's right and fell in the water. Roger gathered a handful of stones and began to throw them. Okay, he wants to throw the stones, but look at the next sentence. Yet there was a space around Henry, perhaps 6 yards in diameter, into which he dare not throw. Here, invisible yet strong, was the taboo of the old life. Around the squatting child was the protection of parents and school and policemen and the law. Roger's arm was conditioned by a civilization that knew nothing of him and was in ruins, okay? So those things don't exist here on this island. There are no parents. There's no school. There's no policeman. There's no law. There are no consequences. There are no rules. And yet, he still can't bring himself to hit Henry with the rocks, okay? He's not there yet. So this shows us even though they're all kind of becoming more savage, they're all kind of becoming these animals, rules are falling off, they're not following rules anymore, they're doing whatever they want to do. They're so conditioned by society that somewhere in the back of their minds, they know this is wrong, okay? So this is Roger, who is going to change a lot throughout the story, but we see him like barely hanging on to this last shred of humanity and decency where he's willing to follow the rules, okay? That is important. If we keep going just a little bit, I want to show you so we have Jack in the Mask here. Lots more dialogue. I want to show you where we see Percival keep crying. Bless his heart. Pretty much every time you see Percival's name, he's crying. Here we go. Henry and Johnny were throwing sand at Percival, who was crying quietly again, and all three in complete ignorance of the excitement. So the older boys are arguing around them. They have no idea. Poor Percival. He's just crying, okay? So I want you to remember Percival is a little kid that just cries and cries and cries. All right. That paragraph really on page 36 here in the PDF is kind of symbolic of this transition from a society where there are rules and things that they can and cannot do to this island where there are no rules and they can do whatever they want to do, but they are conditioned. And we are too. I mean, we have bells that signal to us what we should be doing during different times of the day. And so we're conditioned by civilization and by society and by rules. And so even though he's free and he's a bad kid, he's still hanging on to these rules, okay? Let's jump over real quick and look at the study guide. I'm going to answer these question at a time. So if you need to pause and write these down on your study guide, or if you need to replay or whatever, add to something that you have on your study guide, that's fine too, okay? Identify, you just need to know who all these people are, okay? Obviously, these first four are extremely significant. Sam and Eric go together, so really it looks more like this in the book, Sam and Eric. That's what they call them because they're twins and they're together all the time. And then Maurice and Roger and the little kids, okay? Number two, how did the boys happen to come to the island? Obviously, we know that they were on a plane and their plane crashed, okay? You do need to remember here that they were being shipped off by parents as a part of that program in England at the time to keep kids safe from the atom bomb. Number three, what do the boys have that is a symbol of authority in the society they form? This is the conch. They use it as a symbol of authority. If you're holding it, you can speak. If you're holding it, you're in charge. This is a symbol of civilization, order, rules, authority, okay? Number four, what does the reader learn about Jack when he slashed the green candle buds? So he's not just pushing them back, he's slashing them. We see this like animal instinct here. He's aggressive, he's hostile, he's angry. We can see that this is not going to be good for Jack, okay? Number five, why does Jack hesitate when he lifts his knife to kill the piglet, and what does he promise will happen next time he meets a pig? If you go back to that section in the story, it says blood. So much blood. He knew that there would be so much blood and he was terrified of the blood. Like he couldn't handle it. He couldn't stomach it. Essentially, he was afraid, and immediately he was ashamed. And so he vowed, this will never happen again. I'll never chicken out again. And that's when he turns into this bloodthirsty, obsessed pig hunter. Number six, who are the hunters and what is their job? The hunters are Jack's choir boys. So remember, they were a choir when they showed up there, and they have taken over the hunting. Their job literally is just to provide food for everybody, okay? Seven, what does the little one think he's seen in the forest? This is the kid who thought he had seen a snake. He called it a beastie, and so they refer to it as the beastie moving forward, okay? How and why do the boys make the fire? Obviously, they need a signal fire. Jack suggests rubbing two sticks together because he doesn't know anything, and then Piggy says, use my glasses, and they do. So they started by using Piggy's glasses. Number nine, why does the boys' plan for rescue fail? Well, the fire gets completely out of control. They start fighting. They start arguing. They don't realize what's happening. The entire mountain is up in smoke now. The kid with the mulberry birthmark is missing, and so they can't get along long enough to make this work. All right, let's go to chapters 3 and 4. Number one, this is a question on your test. So you definitely want to pay attention to this one. Although Ralph criticizes the boy for their lack of cooperation, does he bear some of the responsibility for the failures of the group to achieve its goals? Why or why not? Yes. A lot of you got this wrong on your quiz, but I marked it right if you put anything from the book. The answer to the question about what Ralph cares about most is having fun. He was the one standing on his head at the beginning. He was the one saying no grown-ups. He was the one saying we need to have fun. We need to have a good time. There's time for rules later. I want to have fun while we're here. Okay. So that was his attitude at first, and they elected him leader. And so they all kind of took on that mentality. So he's realized now, we don't have time for just having fun, but he's the one that set the precedent for that expectation. So he absolutely does bear some of that responsibility, even though he knows better now. Okay. Number 2, how has Jack's personality developed during his stay on the island? We see him becoming more and more savage, more and more angry. He's like walking around in his underwear. He's painting his face. There's mud all over his face. He punches Piggy in the face in chapter 4. So we see him becoming more physically aggressive. He's turning into an animal. He starts like crawling around on all fours looking for pig droppings. He essentially is turning into an animal. Okay. He's losing his humanity every day. Number 3, Ralph says of Simon, he's queer, he's funny. What kind of boy is Simon? Simon, they think he is super weird, okay? He's not into the drama. He does his own thing. We see him hanging out in the woods by himself a lot. He enjoys nature. He's kind of like one with nature. He does a lot of thinking individually. He's very peaceful, and they just don't understand that. That's not their personality, okay? So they think he's a weirdo. Number 4, this is what we just read together in chapter 4. After Maurice and Roger destroy the little and sand castles, Roger stalks the young boy named Henry. When he begins to throw stones, why does he just throw stones near him instead of directly at him? And the answer here is that he still has that shred of civilization left in him, okay? He's still being held back or controlled by his breeding in a functioning society, okay? So if you can't remember that, that's on page 36 of the PDF. Number 5, what causes the hunters who had promised to keep the fire burning to neglect it and allow it to go out? They're obsessed with hunting, okay? They're all dancing around like these madmen, banging their spears on the ground. They've become so obsessed with hunting that they've neglected their job to keep the fire going. And I think chapter 4 is where Ralph becomes furious. Oh, no, never mind. That's in chapter 5. All right, sorry. So they are just obsessed with hunting, and they're neglecting their job, which was to keep the fire going. Okay. Number 6, why does Jack paint his face? So I think he does this for camouflaging, but this is also kind of symbolic of his shift towards an animal. He's becoming like something else. He's not Jack anymore. He's hiding behind this mud and this mask, and he can kind of be this savage animal if he's covering himself up with mud and blood and paint. Okay. So his intentions, I think, are like to look cooler, be camouflaged, but this is symbolic of him literally losing his humanity. He's becoming an animal, okay? So there are your answers for study guide all the way through chapter 4. We can look at 5 and 6 tomorrow if you have any questions, and remember, test on Wednesday, okay? Tomorrow I'm going to tell you exactly what the test looks like, what the layout is, how many questions there are, and what type of questions. So we can talk more about that then. If you want to have questions ready, that's great. Think about what you need to clear up. Think about what you don't understand, what doesn't make sense on the study guide so that we can address those things in class tomorrow, okay? Message me if you need anything at all. Hopefully this video has been helpful and not just cumbersome. See you tomorrow. Bye.